Oh, and I was just telling Liz too. And okay, as everybody's coming on and getting on here, Liz, welcome. I wasn't here when you and Steve did the baton pass.
Oh, you're
So
right.
yeah, so official from me. Welcome to Tea Time. Yay.
Oh, thank you.
So
I love
great to
being
have
here.
you.
What a
Loved
fun
having
thing.
you. And I was telling Liz earlier, and I don't know if people realize this, and if you're not on our email list, Amanda, who's our genius in the background of all this, puts together a e-blast that lists all of the tea time books on Tuesdays. So today we get the live, and then she puts an e-blast out to everybody. So if you're not on our email list, it's a good reason to get on the email list, because then it's just right there for you. Easy to click and order if you're not doing it today.
We
So
like that.
we like that. Um, boy, what else? It just feels like Liz, you might be talking about this, but Mr. Chris Bojalian is in the house. So I was at a luncheon with him today, and he's just does a great event. He does a great presentation. So he'll actually be at the store tonight too. So looking forward to
That's so
having him
exciting.
there too. So it's great. All right. Looks like the order is going to be Liz, Julia, Gabe, and Tom, unless somebody decides to turn their camera off, which you know how much I love that.
It's happened.
Gabe, you're just going to do it
I
I
know. I'm
know.
pretty sure
No.
Gabe will be last by the time we.
Am I
By
a
the time-
child?
I don't know. I don't know that game. What's that game? Turning your
it's
camera
just,
off?
don't
Maybe I
turn
don't
it on
need to
because
know.
it messes me up because your order changes and then I have to actually think, and I don't like doing that.
Certain
So
people like to be last. I don't know
I don't know.
who they
I don't
are.
know.
Mr. Clock's in at 4:01.
For what? I love it. Okay, well, Liz, you get to start us off. So
Okay, so let me
Amanda,
share my screen. And not that it's easy, but it's kind of easy.
There we are.
Great. Okay, and are you just seeing the one slide, or are you seeing
Yep.
everything? Oh, good.
We're seeing your whole thing, but that's okay.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. More coverage. I get more airtime for those
There
other
you
books. So I could not be more excited to talk about James. I'm sure most of you have heard about it because he's been on NPR, he's been in the New York Times, a profile in the New Yorker for Percival Everett. So this is on sale tomorrow. This novel had me laughing and crying. If you haven't heard, it's a retelling of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn told from Jim's perspective, and yet set on the brink of the Civil War. So Huck and Jim have a harrowing journey down the Mississippi. It begins when enslaved Jim overhears that he is about to be sold to a man in New Orleans, separated from his wife and daughter forever. So he decides to hide on nearby Jackson Island until he can come up with a plan. Meanwhile, Huck Finn has faked his own death to escape his violent father, who's just returned to town. The two meet. It's so much fun to read too. They meet myriad characters along the way. And yet it's, a very upsetting story, obviously, and totally gripping and surprising too. This has a totally satisfying ending, I will just say, and reviews have been completely glowing. And so part of the revelation here is that Jim's agency, his intelligence, and his compassion in this novel. So Sam Sachs said in his Wall Street Journal review about the author Percival Everett that Mr. Everett's extraordinary genre-defying career could be described as a sustained demolition of the assumptions of what it means to be a Black author. So this would make an absolutely excellent book to discuss in your book clubs, especially in conversation with Twain's classic. I know that Percival Everett's name, I think he's really getting his due right now. His novel, what was his novel called? Not Perish. I always think it's called
Erasure.
Erasure. I always say Perish. Erasure was adapted into the Oscar-nominated film, American Fiction, and he teaches at USC. I feel so lucky. We have James, and then, in January we had Martyr. These are two amazing books of all of 2024. You can see on my slide, he's already received so many starred reviews and honors, and just look for it tomorrow in the store. I'm sure you'll have a nice stack. And yeah, highly, highly recommend this book. I think anybody who picks it up is going to be bowled over.
That's everything we're hearing and then some. So I'm going to take you off of screen share. There we go. Yep. Oh no, that is everything we're hearing, is just that it is like, and you're right. And we obviously love Ann Patchett just because she's a great author. We love Ann Patchett, but she also has a bookstore in Nashville. And so when she was here for her event with us, all she talked about was James and Martyr. Those were the two books that she was definitely, she was also highlighting, oh God, I can't think of it. This Is Happiness, which was really good. So love Ann Patchett and her recommendations too.
For sure.
So, yeah. But you might have, yeah. So love it. All right, Julia, what do you have for us today? How are you, Julia?
I'm good. I'm
good.
Well,
yeah. Good.
I have for you today the paperback release of Palo Alto by Malcolm Harris. This book did so well for us in hardcover, and I think I talked about it on one of my first tea times. But now I have more news to share because my mother's reading it. I got it for her for Christmas. This is it's kind of a hefty read. It's a thick book, but what is so amazing about it is it looks at the history of Palo Alto and sort of extrapolates how California history has led to a place like Palo Alto, which is so insanely wealthy and has so many of the wealth gap problems that we see sort of throughout the rest of the country. But in Palo Alto, it is under a magnifying glass. And if you have spent any time in the Bay Area, you know that there is literally a freeway that cuts East Palo Alto from Palo Alto. And the two could not be more starkly different, the two places. Palo Alto, of course, was Stanford, and I think you have to make something like $450,000 a year to own a home. In Palo Alto, it's something insane like that. But it sort of looks at that and looks at California history, looks at the history of this town, and sort of, for all of us in California, I think is an amazing look at sort of how we got to where we are with some of the issues that we are facing, which we see throughout the rest of the country, but are really so stark here in California. I will just shout out that Malcolm Harris also grew up in my hometown of Santa Cruz, California. And so obviously is a wise and educated gentleman who is a perfect, I will say, actually, being from Santa Cruz, it kind of makes you perfectly able to talk about a place like Palo Alto because the experience there sort of, we saw, it went from a sleepy little beach town that wasn't very wealthy to, when the Silicon Valley money started up, to an extremely expensive place. And Palo Alto sort of follows a similar trajectory, except sort of to an exponent. So it's a really great book. It's coming out in paperback tomorrow. The paperback makes it a little less unwieldy to carry around in your bag. So yeah, highly recommend.
Oh, sounds fascinating. And you're right. I mean, just the level of wealth, it's just crazy. I mean, I can't wrap my head around some of it. It's one of those things
wild.
Yeah, you're on mute, Gabe.
Is it even like wealth? I mean, that's kind of like what you got to make if you want to live somewhere. I mean, I just read somewhere in San Diego, you got to make $250,000 a year to live in San Diego.
Yeah, but I mean, but what's driven that though is just the upper end of it. People that just are willing to buy and pay whatever they need to live somewhere.
It's like art.
Yeah.
Like, how much is that cliff view? Well, how much do you want to pay for that?
How do you want it for? Exactly. So it's just and that's I mean, I look at, like you said, Gabe, it's like some of these young families that live in it's like I don't know if I can afford my house in my neighborhood anymore. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah,
and then you
okay.
look and just like, you see these young kids that are like buying them and you're going, how are they affording this? Yeah, it's,
They
I
don't
don't
work
know.
in the book. They don't work in the book business.
They
and
don't
it's
work in the
sad.
book
Yeah,
business.
they're not educating enough. Like
Oh, I
all
didn't
of us,
think of
like,
that. That makes sense.
what am I doing
Just
wrong?
saying.
Something's wrong with this
The,
picture.
the book business is populated by very smart people.
Exactly.
So we're not smart enough to go earn a
Wealthy,
real
not saying
living.
we're not
Yeah,
smart enough to be
exactly.
wealthy.
Very smart people who have no financial
None.
knowledge at all.
All right. Okay, Gabe, what do you got for us?
Problem is that lit majors are not good with numbers and math. It's not our fault. I'm going to start off with, The Silverbone, The Details, and The Undiscovered, Harper International Booker Prize long listed, all books from my imprint Harper Via, for you all interested. But that's not what I'm talking about today. That's just a quick reminder of what a good imprint that is. I'm always talking about that imprint. Antibot is the first book I want to talk about. And this is for the provocative book reader. This is not for your grandma. Actually, grandmas are pretty hip now. This is a book about a sentient robot. This is a book about a sex robot created by Doug. Forget Doug's last name. Doug designs this robot, eye color, hair color, figure, shape, cup size, everything. Puts this together, and Antibot reads Doug's libido, and bot is programmed to react to his libido. So there's a lot of sex in the first few pages, like every other page. There's a lot of sex going on with this robot. But while we see, it's one of those things where we see we've seen the robot that comes to self-awareness, and we've seen that trope play out a lot of different ways and a lot of different times in books and movies. But in this book, I think it's really well handled. The robot is programmed, it's AI brain programmed to move forward and learn. And at some point, it seems like Annie surpasses, while Doug degrades, she upgrades, and she goes on the lam so she ends up having a tryst because as she's exposed to more and more things, she starts having feelings. So she has a tryst with Doug's best friend. And then Doug finds out, and Doug, who's kind of a jerk to begin with, becomes even more of a jerk. So Annie hits the road in search of the programmer who programmed her, who actually wants to use her memory system to put into his son who has passed away. He wants to recreate his son. So there's that sick, weird thing going on. So this is a book that is just propelling, man. It's just moving a mile a minute. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moral questions asked here. There's a lot of on the personal front and on the AI front. So I think Sierra Greer handles the subject matters in here very well, very deftly managed. The book I think is resolved real well, and we got some really interesting reviews. It got starred reviews all over the place. Booklist gave it a starred review. Scientific American, I put the quote down there because I'm like, you gotta put down a quote from Scientific American.
Those
No
don't come up
kidding.
very often.
How do you pronounce that word in that?
I can't see it because the screen's in
Oh,
the way. That's my
Buildings
excuse.
Roman,
Oh, Buildings Roman, yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Used to use that all the time.
I've started
Anyways,
dropping that more.
It's
It just rolls off my tongue.
it's one of those words you have in your head. Anyways,
Yeah.
It looks great. Pick it up. It is. I had to buy one of my buyers in Washington area, Redmond, didn't buy it initially. He had some issues with it. And he read The Galley, and we were talking a couple of weeks ago when I was up in Seattle, and he's like, "Well, I read Antibot," and he goes, "I thought it was really well done. So I'm gonna bring a big stack in. So I think it's in the read.
I think it's one of those books. It's a great package too, by the way, but I think it's also one of those books that people don't want to read about the pandemic, but they do. People don't want to read about AI, but they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of those where it's like, I really don't want to read, but I really don't want to know, but I kind of do. And
That's exactly right.
How scary is it, you know?
yeah. And so I think it's one of those that's like really going to do well. Okay. I got to read some of the comments that are coming in on Facebook because there's some good ones. So, Diane's on here that the connection between tomorrow and Liz, this is one of your books, I think. Meg Cowrie, They're Gonna Love You. It's an older backlist title, which both mention William Morris's Strawberry Thief print, which I think is pretty interesting. But I can't wait until Diane until you finish They're Gonna Love You. Or are you halfway through tomorrow? I can't remember which one. Oh, you're halfway through They're Gonna Love You. I love that book. I thought it was really well done. It didn't really get, so it's a good backlist to go to. And then Dee's on here, Gabe, talking about how she read Memories of Lavender and Sage, which is the Amy Runyon book. We did an event with her and Christy Woodson Harvin the other day. So I'm glad that you enjoyed that. And she's also going to read the Berlin Letters, which is, we just hosted her with Rachel McMillan. So a couple of your books too there, Gabe. So lots of good stuff happening in Warwick's here, let me tell you.
And in the chat.
And in the chat. Love the chat. All right, Tom. What you got
Okay,
for us?
so my first book is Henry Louis Gates Jr.'s The Black Box, Writing the Race. So this is the third book Penguin Press has published by Henry Louis Gates. And so what I love, I mean, this book is, he's a great teacher. And this is kind of a tradition. Penguin Press has done a few books by like the best teachers at universities and their most popular class, like the class that every student at Harvard wants to take is Henry Louis Gates' course about the history of Black writing. And so now we're able to be, now he can be our favorite professor too, because it's in book form. And he's really, he's engaging, he's accessible, but he's telling you the full history as he sees it of Black writing in America from the 1700s to the present. So there's a lot of familiar names. There's Frederick Douglass, Zora Neale Hurston, of course, Baldwin, Richard Wright, Toni Morrison, but there are a lot of names of writers we haven't heard of, and he puts them all together into a narrative that tells the story, but also he's not like the metaphor of the black box. It works in all different kinds of ways, but one of the ways is that these writers have never wanted to be put into a box. So they're always arguing with each other at the same time as they're arguing with the larger culture, obviously. So it's a fascinating history of Black Americans and then and literature. So he puts it all together, really, really smart. This, I think, will be his biggest book. I think it has to be. It's so interesting. He's, of course, so he's one of America's great intellectuals, but he also is the host of Finding Your Roots on PBS. He's done a number. We published Stony the Road, which was a PBS. It was the book version of the PBS documentary about gospels through history, gospel music. So he's doing it all. So Henry Louis Gates, out tomorrow, The Black Box.
Looks fascinating.
It's really cool.
I
I love the idea of getting. I love being a student with really great professors. So this is a way in.
Yeah, absolutely, and it'll make all of us book people smarter, right?
That's right. We're smart, but we can always get smarter.
We can always get smarter. Will it make us rich though? That's what I want to know. Don't think so, but we'll be rich in the brain.
And during those editorial presentations, which I love of Penguin Presses, he's known as Skip, right?
I know. I hesitate to call him Skip Gates because I don't know him, but yes, you're right. Everybody knows him.
I just think
Skip
people,
Gates.
it's so lighthearted a name, so it's kind of fun.
You're such a smart person. Don't call him Skippy.
Those Penguin Press presentations are like going to a class. It's like I love those. So I'm next. Yes.
No, Kim actually came on.
Oh, Kim.
So Kim's getting the award for being last all the time. Tom, just don't come in at 5:15 or 4:15 because that'll freak me out. Okay, Kim, what do you got?
Okay, my first book is where are my photos? Here they are. Is okay, it's It's Eric Larson's upcoming book. Yes, he is coming out with a new book, The Demon of Unrest. And it actually doesn't come out until May. I thought it came out until April. I'm sorry for doing it this early, but it does come out in time for Father's Day. And it's incredible. Eric, I'm not done. I'm only partway through, but Eric Larson, of course, has a unique ability to make history accessible to everyone. And in this story, he draws on a huge number of sources, all kinds of archival material, everything from diaries and official communications to secret communiques and things like flyers advertising slave auctions and bank documents that listed Black people as collateral. And I read an interview with him about the book, and he said that going through that material was the most important, vivid, and horrifying thing that he did during, writing the book. One of the most horrifying things he's ever done. And the book covers the 5 months between Lincoln's election, which of course the only one because there was a four-way, it was a four-way election, and the attack on Fort Sumter. And it is absolutely riveting. He does a deep dive into what the South was like then, and why they were so dependent on slavery, for economic reasons and for ideological reasons, and how the controversy was, as we expanded into the Western territories, whether they should be slave states or free states. And I'm learning an incredible amount. And as always, it's just this thrilling, unputdownable read. It focuses sort of on a lot of the back and forth between South Carolina, which was sort of the hot spot of the secessionist movement, and Washington, and all the back and forth as Washington had tried to avoid war, and certain people in South Carolina, tried to foment war. And Eric Larson, in the beginning of the book, he says that it was while he was writing this that the January 6th thing happened, and he draws a parallel to today. And as you're reading this, the parallels to today are really interesting. And as always, there are all these different viewpoints, all these first person accounts like diaries. There's one prominent person in the book is a woman. She's a society woman in the South. Her husband is extremely rich, and she actually draws parallels between slavery and being married. She's a critic, and she's very funny. And there are all kinds of, there are quotes that could come out of social media today. Just these incredibly rude things, but interesting. So I highly recommend this. It's, as usual, it's just a total fascinating, page turning narrative history that appeals to everybody, not just, Civil War buffs.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Coming out in May. So pre-order now.
Pre-order, yeah, definitely.
Pre-order now.
Yeah,
All
and yeah.
Okay, Liz, what do you got for us?
So back to poetry always. Let's see. Tomorrow also on sale is Michael Ondaatje's new poetry collection, A Year of Last Things. I think he's still best known for his novel, The English Patient, but he had 6 volumes of poetry published before he ever published any fiction. These are so gorgeous. So this is his 14th volume of poetry, and it really harkens back to my favorite books of his. The first one I read was his memoir, Running in the Family, which was, this lush memoir about his Sri Lankan childhood. And then I love, and I put the cover there on the slide, The Cinnamon Peeler, that poetry collection, just gorgeous. So this is a collection of connected poems. They're really clear. It's interspersed with some prose as well. And we go from a boarding school in Sri Lanka to Moliere's chair during his last stage performance, to Bulgarian churches and their icons, to the California coast, and to his beloved Canadian rivers. I love the letter that came with our editorial presentation from his editor, who said, "I was sad that it had come to an end. A Year of Last Things is truly a remarkable collection of poetry, the focus always tight and yet simultaneously far-ranging. For the richness of image and lushness of language, there was never a moment I didn't feel transported." And so here's a favorite line of mine from the poem. And you really can read this almost like one of his novels. But of course, I love poetry also for its brevity. And so one of his poems here is A Night Radio Station in Koprivshtitsa. And the line is, "When you are surrounded with ornaments of the old world, you need to hear one living vein."
Love it.
Great book.
Any time Ondaatje comes up with something, isn't it? It's a big deal.
Yeah. And they're so different one from the other. Also, even though they're connected, it's just, I don't know. I'm always worried that people don't like to read poetry, and I don't think they understand how sustaining it can be, and not to be afraid.
And especially it seems like during the pandemic, people were like gulping it down because it was just something that just calmed and soothed so many people. So
if you like his writing, you've got to go for his poetry.
Perfect. All right, Julia.
All righty. I have a new novel that is out tomorrow by Adam Rapp. I keep getting confused because I am a big musical theater person, and Adam's Rapp brother is Anthony Rapp, who was the original Mark in Rent, and is also on Star Trek and was in Adventures in Babysitting and Dazed and Confused and many other things. But anyway, so Adam Rapp is this amazing novelist, and this novel, I'm sure I've talked about it before. My sort of ambivalence to my own consumption of true crime, and how much I hate how much true crime I consume, because I think it's kind of gross, but also I can't stop myself. And so like, I'm sure other people relate.
I think there's a lot of us that relate to that.
Yeah, exactly. And so this book is, I think, for people who love true crime, A Wolf at the Table. Sorry, I'll say the name. For people who love true crime, this book really kind of digs into some of what we are fascinated by. And the basic premise is that every sort of section is a different dinner with this family. And one of the brothers in this family turns out to be a serial killer. That's not giving anything away. But you sort of watch him and his behavior grow more aggressive, grow more violent, and you watch how the family sort of deals with that and sort of pushes that away, like pushes it under the rug and pushes it under the rug, and doesn't really face the truth of what's happening in front of them. And it's a sort of fascinating psychological drama, a family drama. Adam Rapp, actually, their mother was the last nurse to see John Wayne Gacy before he was executed, to attend to him. And then one of their other family members lived in the next house over from where Richard Speck murdered all those women in Chicago.
No, come on.
Yeah,
so
no, Julia, stop.
I'm sorry. It's the truth. But I might be getting that exact relationship wrong. But they're one of their family members was very close to that Richard Speck murder, and so these are things that like that they have talked about as a family, and so sort of he was looking to explore how this happens, and sort of this very I understand that serial killers aren't exclusively American, but he sort of is looking in this lens at this very American violence, and how we sort of allow violence in our society and sort of within our families and within our communities and stuff like that, and how we sweep some of this behavior under the rug in order to maintain a sense of decorum. So it's a great book, A Wolf at the Table by Adam Rapp, not Anthony Rapp. And comes out tomorrow.
And I was wanting to say, it's like when they're sitting at the dinner table and they're brushing, it's like, he was such a normal boy. We never saw any signs. He was such
And then
a
they
good
tell you
boy.
a story and you're like, that is unhinged. Like, holy Moses.
And I only wanted you to stop because I can't handle the truth. This is too
I'm
much.
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry, Tom.
The level of denial, though, that people in families do, you know.
Well, and I think you think about just like on a macro level and on a micro level, how much violence we sort of permit within our culture, you know, American culture. It's really like
We've
sort of
gotten
digs into that.
we've got very desensitized to a
Exactly.
lot of stuff. It's
Nothing
not,
more American than a mass shooting or a serial killer.
no. It's nuts. Go America.
We own it.
Man, it.
Sorry,
Alrighty,
not to
Gabe.
bring the room down.
Right. Okay, Debbie Downer. Okay, Gabe.
So my next book is Zeytinia, Jose Andres, his latest. So
If you do nothing else, buy this just because it's him.
yeah, he's such a good dude, right? I mean,
Right.
he's always helping everybody out. Feet on the ground way before Anderson Cooper. I guess Anderson Cooper doesn't get his
I don't
shoes
think
on the
Anderson
ground
really. I
anymore.
don't think he puts his feet on the ground, does he?
Been a while. Another Harper author, by the way. So Jose Andres, this is his restaurant of 20 years. It is a Mediterranean, Greek, Turkey, Lebanese food with Jose's particular twist. And what you know, in our house, his vegetable book is probably the cookbook that gets used the most. The last book that we did with him, beautiful book, really easy recipes, accessible ingredients. Everything's delicious. Everything looks like it looks on the plate in the pictures. And that's one of the things I think he's done really well is getting you some really tasty recipes that are not going to take you all day to create flavor and are doable with local ingredients that are available regularly. And you get the Jose Andres flavor. Everything in that vegetable cookbook that we've tried is just delicious. And so I'm 100% waiting for the next Jose Andres cookbook at our house. Here it is. Looks great.
Love it. Love him. I mean, he is just. Hold on. Are we done?
Yeah, I was going to share some other interiors.
Oh.
But I'm not gonna,
Oh, are you gonna do it?
no,
You gonna talk?
no, there's nothing that impressive in there.
Well, keep talking.
I mean, all right, let me see if this will work. Oh, here it is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I had it queued. Anyways, that's some of the innards.
Hold on. There we go. There we go.
That looks edible.
Oh yeah.
But like you said, it's very Mediterranean, so it's very, clean.
Very clean, easy, a little piping. Anyways, that's what we
I
got.
like that.
Gabe, where is his restaurant?
This one I think is in New York.
I want to go.
Love him.
Totally.
Yeah,
He's amazing.
I didn't even see where this one is because he closed one of his Miami restaurants. I'll let you know. Oh, and we were
Alright.
discussing Formula One last week. I got to correct myself. Back in the day, they did run F1
Oh,
Formula One cars, but they got too expensive because they were getting gouged by F1. So they went to whatchamacallit,
IndyCar.
NASCAR.
Indy cars in 84.
See,
I
I'm
see.
old, Gabe. I was there. I was there. That's where I grew up. I was there.
Just I can't be wrong.
Yeah, and I was like,
And you're
all
here,
right,
but you come and correct yourself when
Come
that, on the
correct.
rare occasion.
Otherwise, I got no veracity. So,
on a rare
DC,
occasion,
Zatenya is in DC.
DC. Okay. Yeah, I love it. I mean, everything he does is just what a. If you haven't watched the Anthony Bourdain with him, it's fantastic.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, love it. Okay, Tom.
Okay, so my next book is called Memory Piece by Lisa Ko. This is new from Riverhead tomorrow in hardcover. And so Lisa Ko was published by Algonquin for her first book. That was The Leavers, and that became a sensation, was a finalist for the National Book Award, I think, and the PEN/Faulkner. So it really established her. And so now this is her follow-up, and it's kind of hard to describe, but that's what I like about it. It's ambitious, it's thoughtful, it's a lot of things. So it starts off in the early 1980s. It's 3 Asian American teenage girls who are the best of friends, but they're all really different, but they all share this artistic sensibility and creativity and sense of their own freedom. So that's the 80s. Very, you really get a feeling for that time and place. It's New York in the 1980s, New York and New Jersey. Then it takes you into the 1990s. Now they're sort of starting to come into their own. One of them is a performance artist. There's a coder, so she's just learning about the internet and the things to come. And the third friend is a community activist. She takes you so the 80s, 90s, and then ultimately she takes you to the 2040s, which is an incredible leap of imagination. It's a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, terrifying what she sees in the 2040s, but it all hangs together. I mean, it's a really brilliant idea, and it's surprising. And the ending, it's like there's a twist to it that's satisfying. It's really good. And so it's out tomorrow, but the reviews have started to run. And I love this Washington Post review because it gets at that, like, how hard it is to describe this book. She says, when I came across a blurb proclaiming Lisa Ko's second novel to be a book about, quote, everything, I hitched an eyebrow. Everything? I thought, really? And then she says, pretty much. This is a novel that explores, among other things, chosen versus blood family, artistry, work, the internet, capitalism, activism, communal living, class, elitism, exploitation, surveillance, lesbianism, bisexuality, memory, time, and the particular thrills and rigors of being a young person in New York City, or just being a person at all. So I think that kind of captures what this book is trying to do. So that's Memory Piece by Lisa Ko.
Not that I think it's the same, because I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to compare it, or her, I think, to Gabrielle Zevin, maybe.
Oh, interesting. I like that. Yeah.
Because I think that's what Gabrielle kind of does, is she has so many things.
Yes.
That she encompasses in these big ways, but that it's so accessible.
Yeah, but you're drawn into the world that she creates. Yes,
right.
But you're right. I felt that about tomorrow.
The Memory Piece.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think if you probably like that, go ahead, Julia.
I was just gonna say another former Algonquin author that went to Penguin.
There you go. Yeah, because the first one was Algonquin. Yeah, you're right. Because AJ Fickery. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
So anyway, so
the comparisons are exact. Yeah.
As you were describing it, though, I was like, I bet people who like Gabrielle Zevin's book will like this.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay, Kim.
Okay, my next book came out last week. It's a cookbook called Cooking in Real Life, and it's by Liddy. I don't know how to say her last name, Hewick. I as I was shelving this, I was looking through it, and I was like, wow, these recipes look delicious. They look really straightforward. They're like totally doable, but they have a little twist to them. And she's a regular contributor to the New York Times, which I knew. And then I realized, reading the forward, that Lydia actually got a job straight out of college working for Ina Garten. And she wasn't a cook. She never cooked, but she managed all of her social media. And as soon as that's how she got the job. As soon as she got the job, they started cooking together all the time. And Ina says that for 7 years, they did everything together, shopping, testing recipes, answering customers' cooking questions, book tours, you name it. And the cookbook is sort of a young, hip Ina Garten. And I actually made a couple of the recipes. I made over the weekend. I made this maple roasted squash with grapes, shallots, and rosemary. It's delicious and super easy. And today I actually made some of our cookie recipes. I have to bring gluten-free cookies to a lecture I'm going to tonight. So I made these chocolate cherry crinkle cookies, and they were
Yum.
like incredibly easy, and they taste like a chocolate brownie, but with they're absolutely delicious and incredibly easy. I had to make them twice because I didn't make enough the first time. It only makes 12. And then I also made, I'm going to bring them to work tomorrow. I haven't baked them yet, but they're in the fridge. They have to chill for a little bit. I'm trying her peanut butter and ginger cookies, which are supposed to be like a delicious, chewy peanut butter cookie with little bits of crystallized ginger. Sounds really good.
Okay, I can't. I bet it is good, but who would, because ginger and peanut butter together, I would never
I know,
have.
but I want to try them to see.
Crystallized ginger. She said it brings the peanut butter cookie to another level.
I
gotta
bet
try
it does. No,
I gotta
bet
try
really
it.
does. You know.
Right.
You have to report back so we know.
I
if
will.
it's a good
Yeah.
combination
I
or
will.
not.
I think I
will.
have an
Talk about-
emergency meeting at Warwick's
I
tomorrow.
know.
Yeah.
Right on.
I was going to say, I'm not
there's a lot
planning to come
happening.
down, but now I am. I'll be there tomorrow.
Totally. Anyway, really fun, easy recipes.
But that's what I've always loved about Ina, though, is Ina's recipes
Exactly.
always been very accessible. And
Right.
so they're made with real ingredients. Any
Right.
level of cook can cook Ina.
Right. And just like
And
Ina,
so-
she has no formal cooking training. She
Yeah.
just started doing it.
I love it.
So highly recommend.
Perfect. All right, we're on lightning round. Okay, Liz, you're starting it.
I'm really impressed with Kim and all this baking.
Oh, she brings cookies in all the time.
Oh my gosh.
She keeps the staff on their cookie addiction.
It helps morale, and I love to cook, so
Oops.
A cookie that tastes like a brownie, that is my friend.
Yeah, and gluten-free. I mean, unbelievable.
Gluten-free. Okay, so forgive me, I don't know all the rules yet about Tea Time. This book isn't out till June 11th, but I did, let's just say, in honor of Persian New Year, which is tomorrow, and Nowruz, I want to talk about this fun, escapist, destined to be like a beach read, summer reading hit, obviously set in our own Southern California, Tehrangeles itself, which is loosely West Los Angeles. So this is social satire, it's escapism, it's funny, it's billed as Little Women meets Crazy Rich Asians.
Yep. I was gonna say that Crazy Rich Asians reminds me of Crazy Rich Asians.
Oh yeah. And buyers are like really falling for this Persian cat and sunglasses. I don't know if I'm going to start seeing that repeated in designs or what, but anyway, so yes, it's about the Milani family, specifically these 4 fast food heiresses. They're living in a mansion in the hills of LA, and they're on the brink of their own reality show now that the Kardashians have finished theirs. The novel opens on a discussion amongst the Sisters of Zodiac reassignment, which AKA means changing your birth date to get the desired astrological sign. Very Californian. Kevin Kwan himself writes, "The antics and agonies of the Milani family had me Googling pet psychics and turning the pages gleefully. At turns surprised and horrified, but always charmed and laughing so hard." So the novelist, Purchista Kapoor, her family moved to LA after fleeing the Iranian Revolution. She wrote a previous book of essays, Brown Album, that was very much about that experience and being pulled between the glitzy culture of Tehrangeles, which again is an enclave of wealthy Iranians and Persians in LA. I used to live right in the heart of it in Brentwood. Her own family's modest life was a pull, you know, compared to this kind of culture, this glitzy materialistic culture, her own family's modest life and their culture, and also the pull of becoming an assimilated American. So she's clearly had a lot of fun writing about what she knows in this novel, Tehrangeles. And then I also included her little Instagram post about her research for the novel and this dress, which I had no idea was, you know, such a hit amongst Middle Easterners in the bandage dress. So I hope you'll wait for it and look for it and yeah,
Pre-order it.
pre-order it.
Do the pre-order. Amanda put the link in there, so you can pre-order. That's what I love about the pre-order. You can just pre-order it. You don't even need to remember. It just shows up at your door.
Yep.
So
She's one of my favorite authors. I'll just
Is
say
she?
Oh, I'm so glad
Nice.
to know
she's
that.
great.
and that's where when you were first describing it, I was like, oh, this has got Crazy Rich Asians written all over it as far as like the comp to it. So yeah, oh, sounds fantastic.
That was the first neighborhood I worked in when I first moved to LA too, where all the Persian bakeries are. And I was like a kid from a small town, and I was like, "Woo, this is different."
Yeah.
It was
What's
fun.
happening?
Yeah,
Where
it was a great. I mean, I loved it. It was a great introduction to Los Angeles, but it was definitely like a wake up call, or like a, I don't know, totally different.
That I think is
A
gonna be one of
revelation.
those-
Yeah,
that's a little cult classic. I think we got going on there with that one.
Very
Definitely.
Okay,
cool.
Julia.
okay, I've got this is a backlist title, but the trailer for the movie that is coming out of this book came out last week. This is Peter Brown's The Wild Robot, and this is a middle grade fiction. This is one of those books that the first time when I sold my first season at Hachette last fall, so a little less than a year ago, the third book in this series was coming out, and literally, like, I got an education from day one. The first account that I met with was like, oh my God, Peter Brown and the Wild Robot series. So I was like, okay, I guess I need to like really look into this and do my research. And I bought, or I ordered the books to me, and I read them, and it is such a delight. It is so like touching and lovely, this book about this robot who is like surviving in the wilderness and is all alone on a remote island. And she doesn't know what her purpose is to be on this remote island. It's got like tinges of WALL-E or the Iron Giant. It's such a beautiful book. All my children's buyers just like freak out over how good it is. And it is coming. There's a movie coming from DreamWorks in September. So the first trailer just dropped. So if you go to YouTube and check it out, I think you're going to be hearing a lot of this book. And I actually do think, even if you are an adult and you don't read, middle grade literature, it was really touching. I really, really loved it. So I maybe even cried a tear or two while I was reading it. So The Wild Robot by Peter Brown.
What ages is middle grade for this?
Middle grade is it's like, let me see, it is aged at 8 to 12 years old.
Okay.
So it is for sort of new-ish readers. It's a definitely book,
Okay.
but it's got great illustrations throughout too. So,
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
That's because I was thinking for my little nephew. So I'm like, oh, this sounds like something I should get for
yeah,
him.
and it's a trilogy. There are 3 books, so I would imagine there will be 3 movies. Because I'm guessing it's going to be a big
hit.
deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It'll be a hit.
Yeah.
All right, Gabe.
Sounds fun. All right, so I'm going to finish off with a book that's kind of a wild ride. You got to read it to really get it. It is Maggie Thrash's Rainbow Black. This was a paperback original. It was an Indie Next pick. And it was a book that we just were handing it to people to read because it is a wild ride. It is a 13-year-old protagonist. When the book opens, Lacey Bond, her parents are very hippy dippy. They own this little preschool, and they are caught up in the satanic panic of the 1990s. So I mean, there's scant evidence. It's like some crystals and some candles because they're hippies, for goodness sakes. But it creates this huge uproar in their lives. And during the long trial, Lacey's sister is actually murdered, and then that's blamed on the parents. Nothing comes of that. She moves on with her life. We move forward in the novel, and we get a 20-something adult Lacey. She's found love. She seems to have found her purpose in life. She's a law clerk, and in the midst of work, some things are unearthed, and her past could be catching up with her again. So it's a strong narrative. It's a really strong voice. Maggie Thrash has got a really unique voice that's going to stick with you, and she's got this this funny, dark edge to her. And so this novel, in everything I said, it's also very funny, and it's in its own way, it's very fast paced. So there's a lot of pace in this novel, even though, I mean, there's a lot going on. Fun book. It's one of those things you pick up, and you know, I was at trade shows in the fall handing it out to people, and I started it last night. I got halfway through it. I'm going to finish it on the plane or the ride home or whatever. So it's that kind of a book. Little surprise, you know, paperback original, something fun and different.
Great cover. Kind of reminds me though, I bet readers of Mona Awed's Bunny
Oh yeah.
would be all over this. I think that's if you read Bunny, I think this is
Your
for you.
next read for sure.
This looks really good. Okay, Tom.
Okay, so for my lightning round pick, another paperback original. So that's fun to have paperback originals. You'll get this just from the title, The Best Way to Bury Your Husband. So, and the cover gives you a sense of its darkness and its humor. So Sally's husband, not good. She hits him over the head with a cast iron skillet, and he dies. And so that's where we begin. And then it turns out there are other women in town who either have killed their husbands or want to or need to kill their husbands. So this is a Pam Dorman book. So she's the editor of Richard Osman. So it's set in England. It's British. It's really funny, but also it is exactly right in its tone somehow. She is she's worked with women who have been, you know, that have had domestic abuse. So she's sensitive to that as well, at the same time as pulling off this kind of magic trick of the humor and the mystery. I love the dedication also gives you an idea. She says, "For all the women who fight for other women and all the women who make my life wonderful, P.S. You'd better believe the pledge of corpse burying assistance is legit. Naturally, I expect this to be a reciprocal bond of love, devotion, and, if necessary, dismemberment." So it's a really fun paperback original, The Best Way to Bury Your Husband.
Okay, so that's the fun version of it. Do you guys remember a book, and it came out, I think, in the mid 2000s, maybe, a Japanese book called Out, where it was all over the place, and it was about two women that help each other like get rid of their husband. Oh my God, it's like it's great.
Wow.
It was so good. It was so good, but it was like, but this sounds like it's a little more. It sounds a little more cozy.
Yes, definitely.
The other one was like, holy moly, but this sounds good. All right, Kim, I gotta look up to see if I can find that out because it was so good.
Okay, my next book I previewed last week, it's Disappointing Affirmations by Dave Tarnowski. And he explains in his introduction that he says that, you know, feelings make people uncomfortable, especially sadness, anguish, and grief. People don't know how to deal with them. And he says, but these negative thoughts should be examined, not chased away. And affirmations should not be reserved for all, pure positivity, but negative feelings need affirming also. And he actually says he's struggled with depression and he's bipolar. And the book is really funny. I'll give you some examples, okay? And they all have this background of this beautiful, nature scene, just like the positive affirmations do. So here's one, or here's two. I don't know if you can read these. One says, "No one is coming to save you. You are the adult. I'm so sorry." Another one says, "You're doing the best that you can," which is pretty sad. And then another says, "It's okay to have feelings, but do you need to have so many? Stop romanticizing the past. You've always been miserable. Why wait for things to fail when you can make it happen? And the best way to cope with your problems is to add new ones to distract yourself from the original ones." And it goes on, and it's very funny. And a lot of it has a lot of profanity. So if you're buying it as a gift or for yourself, just keep that in mind. But it's very, very funny, and everyone I've showed it to loves it. And I'm ordering a couple copies for myself to give to people.
He was a
super
winner.
fun gift.
Yeah, it needs to be on the counter. He was a Winter Institute. I
Yeah.
got a signed copy for Amanda.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the book I was talking about, Amanda. Don't y'all remember seeing this?
I do remember seeing
Everywhere.
it.
Oh
Everyone.
yeah, I remember that book.
Do you remember
100%.
this book? And so literally these two Japanese women who literally cut one of us. It's like, it's
Yeah.
brutal. I get another
looks
one.
great.
I gave my sister Silence of the Lambs as a beach read. This was back in the day. She was ready to kill me. I had her read this one too. She's like, "I am stopping taking recommendations.
Never again.
You have a twisted brain." But so if you want a darker version of Tom,
Right. Right, exactly. You can take this version or that version or both.
or both, if you're looking for whichever side of the fence you're on that.
Double
on the dark
header.
side. Or maybe if you're a little more like Julia and I, and the fascinated by the gruesomeness.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Great discussion. Great books this week. And so we gave Chris a little bit of a shout out. So he is, like I said, Princess of Las Vegas is out tomorrow. So, and he's here, and we've got, oh my God, I can't wait for Julia. I think it's your book. Is it your book? The one that's the CIA
yeah.
or the CIA person? Do we have
Joanna
She's here
Mendez,
tomorrow. Can't wait for that.
And
Joanna
you have
Mendez.
books.
So
And
she's
you
here
have
tomorrow.
books.
And then
most
Anna
importantly.
Yes.
Books are at the store.
They're physically here at
Oh,
the
good.
store, which
They're
is a
at the
good
store. It looks super interesting.
that one I mean, there's certain, I love all the events, but there's certain ones that it's like, oh, I want to listen. I want to come. When it was proposed, it's like, oh yeah, bring that, please. And then Anna Quinlan will be here this week. So
Oh wow.
lots of good
Gosh.
stuff happening.
Good
What a
stuff.
roster.
Good lineup this week. So thanks everybody. Have good reading, and we will
Yeah.
see y'all next week. So Amanda, you can take us out.
It's all up to Amanda.